The battle map. I've run many D&D sessions with nothing but a can-do attitude and some dice, and it's always a good time. But sometimes it's nice to have a visual aid, a tactile experience, something to look at while you're stacking dice. I enjoy running D&D combat in all its forms. Theater of the mind, do-it-yourself. The battle map, 3D terrain, virtual tabletop. And over the years, I've tried all kinds of different tricks and techniques, so I thought I'd try sharing some of the lessons I've learned along the way and highlight the different strengths and weaknesses of each method. The categories will be as follows. Budget, the cost. Consistency. For consistency, we're talking about the clarity of possibilities, helpfulness of visual aids, and the ease of spatial awareness. Flexibility, which is the ease of alteration and the multi-purposeness of assets. Immersion, which is draw, experience, and spectacle. Lastly is prep time, which is how long, or to a lesser extent, how much effort goes into preparing for the session.
Please excuse the crudity of this model. I didn't have time to build it to scale or to paint it.
Each category is weighed evenly and will be added up to a letter grade for easy comprehension. Today's video topic was voted upon by my viewers, and I plan on running similar polls on this channel, so keep an eye on the community tab and subscribe for more D&D content. Theater of the mind. First off, with a budget of $0 is Theater of the Mind. Just a table, the dice, and your friends having a shared hallucination for 4 to 5 hours. Hold on. That's better. This is the combat where everyone simply imagines what is happening. The DM's job is to paint a mental picture of the scene and allow everyone else to act out the scenario. Beware, the veil between improv group and D&D is thinnest here. Alright, you walk into the tavern, there's a bunch of angry mercenaries with crossbows, and they are pointed at you. What do? I break the nearest guy's nose to gain respect. Okay, you're attacking the nearest one? Well, the other 30 were holding their actions, so their attacks go off. I'm sorry, 30? Yes? What?
You said a bunch of bandits.
Mercenaries.
A bunch is like 4 or 5, not 30.
You didn't ask for clarification. I only have like 28 hit points. Oh.
I'll get the diamonds.
I'd give Theater of the Mind a 5 in the budget department. It's free after all.
Crowd your mini miniatures onto the game board. Oh, spend your thousands of dollars, or for the price of a dream. You could describe the whole scenario for nothing!
But only a 1 in consistency. If the DM fails to describe even one key piece of information,
no way.
Logistics are tough too. Like, how many enemies are there? Oh, you want to carry the statue? Sorry, it's actually 30 feet tall. I misspoke. I rated a 5 in flexibility. After all, you're literally making it up as you go along. Immersion is a tricky one. A skilled DM can really use their narrative chops to immerse the players in the combat. However, sometimes that lack of visual aids can really leave players scratching their heads. Prep time corresponds directly with your ability to improvise. Because there is no physical setup, I think a prep time of 4 is appropriate. So we have a 5, 1, 5, 4, and 4. For a 19 out of 25, or a B+. This is the most flexible and cheapest option. The pain points here are the lack of visuals, but most of its weaknesses can be overcome by a solid DM. Do it yourself. This can involve everything from a facsimile representing the map to grid paper, a whiteboard, or even a chessboard. Anything you have lying around the house, basically. For example, before I had a proper battle map, I printed out 1 by 1 inch grid paper. A small portion of you might have access to your own workshop to make really good-looking custom pieces, but that's not in the cards for most of us. My preferred method is reusing styrofoam, painting it, cutting it, and drawing on it. It's lightweight and cheap, and it unlocks options for verticality. With creative repurposing and minimal purchasing, you can cobble together a pretty decent setup. I give it a 3 in consistency, not a ton of info being communicated. I rated a 4 in flexibility. That lack of detail means that every piece has multiple purposes, and that lack of detail means only a 2 in immersion. For prep time, we have a 2. This is assuming you haven't done any work towards your next session. Cobbling together pieces of the environment, putting grids on styrofoam, that all takes time. So for DIY, we have a 4, 3, 4, 2, and 2. For 15 out of 25, or a C-. It's not as flexible as Theater of the Mind, and it's not as accurate as, say, the vinyl battle mat. When I say battle map, I really mean this. Usually a vinyl mat. This was my introduction to D&D combat, and I am nostalgic for it. There are also custom terrain options, like these. Battle maps provide a high degree of accuracy due to the grid, but they leave a lot to be desired in the looks department. If you are using a battle mat, you probably want to invest in some miniatures to give the players something to look at. It's really a matter of taste and where you want to spend your money. The battle map scores a 4 in budget. While it's a decent purchase up front, it's likely the only one you're making. If you don't use markers and you're not into miniatures, there's no ongoing costs. The mat scores a 3 in consistency. Some elements might look vague or need clarification from the DM, which can get annoying. It is bland, but we know exactly where everyone is. I rated a 3 in flexibility. You can draw anything upon it, but once you've drawn that, you're locked in. Small alterations can be made, but that can be annoying as well. I rated a 2 in immersion. I mean, it is a flat beige surface. Just look at it. For prep time, we have a 5. By far the fastest option out of anything we'll discuss. As long as you're not a perfectionist, you can draw up a map super quick, plop some minis down, and you're good to go. And so the battle map scores a 4, 3, 3, 2, and a 5 for a 17 out of 25 or a C+. This is the low effort, low prep option. Good to go at a moment's notice. It's simple, functional, and cheap. Relative to our next option, 3D terrain consists of modular 3D printed tiles. I won't sugarcoat it, we have a 1 out of 5 in the budget department. For consistency, we have a 4. The different setups you can make with this tile-based terrain portray the combat arena with a lot of accuracy and detail. The more detailed setups actually lose out in the flexibility department, but the more simple and utilitarian tiles are more multi-purpose. For immersion, I'll give it a 5. This is basically what you're paying for. For prep time, we have a 3. If you have a good grasp of your setup, you can get it together pretty quickly. However, some degree of planning is probably necessary. So for 3D terrain, we have a 1, 4, 3, 5, and 3 for a 16 out of 25 or a C. If you have the money and storage space, frankly, this may be your best option. If you don't, then this just isn't viable.
Virtual tabletop.
Lastly, we go digital.
Digital!
A virtual tabletop uses either an online platform or program that everyone downloads to play. Also included in this category is a physical screen built into a table. The battle map and tokens are made from art assets that have been uploaded by the developers, the community, or perhaps yourself. Popular platforms include Roll20, which is the platform I use primarily, but there's also Foundry, Tailspire, and the official D&D VTT, and probably a few others I've never heard of. For virtual tabletops rating, we have a 3 in budget. This is based on averages across all options and will honestly vary quite a bit depending on which one you choose. On one hand, we have free platforms like Roll20 with built-in options to pay about $100 a year for access to all of their features. There are other platforms like Foundry, which are a $50 one-time purchase, and the D&D virtual tabletop, which will encourage an ongoing D&D Beyond subscription. Lastly, we have the digital screen built into a physical table, which is probably the most expensive up front, but with no ongoing fees, presumably. For consistency, we have a 5. Everything is rendered in highly detailed environments. The map will have a grid on it for accuracy. However, the verticality problem is still present in the non-3D virtual tabletops. For flexibility, we have a 3. Aside from using a drawing tool, once you upload that map, it is locked in. For immersion, we have a solid 5. We see everything in high levels of detail. Some platforms have animated spell effects or even animated environments. For prep time, we have a solid 4. Drag the tokens into place and you're done. If you need to change to a different map, this is also extremely quick. However, if you're like me and you like making your own custom maps, this will add to your prep time. So for virtual tabletop, we have a 3, 5, 3, 5, and 4 for a 20 out of 25 or an A-. This comes as a genuine surprise to me because I'm a huge fan of in-person play, but I can't deny the utility and ease of play a VTT provides. So for our final ranking, number 5, do it yourself. Number 4, 3D terrain. Number 3, the battle map. Number 2, theater of the mind. And number 1, virtual tabletop. As we can see, the highest and lowest rank methods are only 5 points away. And as we know, a good DM will make up that difference. These rankings are not set in stone. Different people have different priorities, and that's okay. But now is the time I reveal the shocking twist of this video. I would argue we see the best results when we mix different methods. You can add tiles to your battle map to add a bit more visual appeal and structure. You can add your homemade projects to your 3D terrain to add more color and flair. You can run combat in Theater of the Mind while keeping track of everybody on a virtual tabletop behind the DM screen. These are just a few examples, but I really encourage you to experiment with different techniques to nail down what works best for you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something, were entertained, or ideally both.